For the first time, the IAF World Half Marathon Championships come to Portugal, in the great holiday centre of the Algarve. And here we are in Vilamoura for the 12th staging of this annual race, the half marathon. Just over 21 kilometres. A fiercely contested event with many of the world's top distance runners here. And we start with the men's half marathon. The Kenyan team, of course, will be one of the favourites. They've won 7 times in the previous 12 stagings of this event. The other Ethiopian, Tanzanian and other East African teams also likely to be prominent. And we may also get a challenge from Tanzania. They've got a good team. Quite warm here. It's early in the morning and 19 degrees Celsius already. The temperature likely to increase as a big field, just over 100 runners, gets underway. Already prominent in the blue vests, a couple of the Frenchmen there. Number 216, that's Abdelghani Lalali. 214, Tariq Bouzid. Already some of the green and red vests of the Ethiopian teams prominent. They include Tosfai Tola, who's had a great success in this race in recent years. The very strong Kenyan team, who include Jackson Koech, Yusuf Songoka, Paul Kirui, Martin Lell in their team, and also John Chariot Korea. So 4.5 minutes into the race, already the Ethiopian in the green and a couple of Tanzanians also up there prominently, wearing 304 Martin Schuler, 302 Fabian Joseph and 305 John Yuda. A very strong collection of Tanzanians who may well challenge this race so dominated by East Africans. Also see number 239 Mostafa Erabe of Italy. Did some of the Europeans based originally in North Africa. 13 minutes into this race already beginning to be strung out considerably. The competitors run on a 6-lap race, about 2.5 miles each lap. Over the years that this race has been held, 1 hour, which is the high water mark of half distance, half marathon running, has been broken once. That's Shem Korea of Kenya, who ran 59 minutes 56 seconds in 97 when the race was held at Kosice in Slovakia. Slightly cooler conditions on that occasion than they are here today. Very sunny, fairly tough course in that there's quite a lot of twists and turns in this. The Ethiopians, number 208 Tesfaye Tola, 205 Deriji Adiri, 206 Mesfin Hailu, 207 Tariku Jafar. So not quite at full strength. The likes of Haile Gebrselassie, Kananisa Bekele having a rest after their exertions in the World Track Championships. 205 up there, that's Deriji Adiri of Ethiopia. Still very much African dominated at the front there, with the Tanzanians, the Kenyans and the Ethiopians, and that's the leader at 5 kilometres. They've gone through in a good pace, 14:37. That's the leading group. 205 nearest the camera here is Adiri still, and the Tanzanians, 305 John Yuda, just a youngster, but he has already got a terrific record in this race. He's the bronze medalist. The last of 2 occasions this race was run, in 2001 when the race was staged at Bristol in Great Britain, and 2002 when it was at Brussels in Belgium. It's John Yuda there wearing 305, also a silver medalist in the World Cross Country Championships. Yuda with the 17-year-old Fabian Joseph, also of Tanzania, Martin Lell, John Chariot Korea of Kenya, Tesfaye Tola of Ethiopia. Another East African there, Tadisi of Eritrea, who 3 times broke the Eritrean 5,000 metre record on the track this year. The 302, Fabian Joseph, has really come to the fore this year. That's the youngest of the runners in this race. Came to Britain and won the 3A's 10,000 metre championship to qualify him for competing in the World Championships, in which he was 13th at 10,000 metres. Pretty course here, quite a few twists and turns. Just a little bit of shade when they run under the trees, but they're out again now into the bright sunshine as the temperature begins to climb up over 20 degrees Celsius. A little over a third of the way into this race now. 2:50, Jackson Koech, the Kenyan, brother of Benson Koech, the former world junior champion at 800 metres. And a good record at half marathon this year. Is second in the Great North Run just a couple of weeks ago in just 5 seconds outside the hour. And also ran a major half marathon and won in Monterrey in Mexico. So now this leading group, a dozen runners or so, really getting away from the rest of the field. Now, Tanzanians, Ethiopians and Kenyans dominant in that leading pack, together with one man from Eritrea. A couple of Moroccans also up there, Haroufi and Goumri. Around the 10,000 metre point. Runners checking their watches further down the field here. This is Maeda of Japan. Japan with a great tradition in the longer distance races, but he's now back in, what, about 14th, 15th place. 7, Wilson Busanai of Uganda. So there's the leaders at 10 kilometres. They've gone through it in 28:54. This is a little pack following the lead. These are runners around 10th place. Adiri there from Ethiopia with Goumri and Haroufi, the Moroccans, also Hailu of Ethiopia. But in this leading pack, still Yuda and Joseph of Tanzania. Then the Kenyans, Lel, Korea and Songoka. Adiri of Ethiopia, Busanai of Uganda. And then the next little group, 8th and 9th, that we saw a little while back. Well, the Tanzanian group really now pushing on this pace, coming up to the 2/3 point through this half marathon. They'll get quite used to this course. Going along the seafront here in Vilamoura. Quite a lot of holiday makers out on the streets watching the runners. The men's race preceding the women's race. World Half Marathon, which started in 1992 when it was won by Benson Mashia of Kenya. Sad news has just come through that he has just died in the week preceding this race. A great Kenyan tradition in this event. Paul Kosgei, the defending champion, although actually not running here today to defend his title. Haile Gebrselassie, the great man himself, won in 2001, and Paul Tergat the previous 2 years. Well, Tergat's not here, having just set a world best for the marathon, but he's got some good men. 2:51 on the inside there was 2:51, John Chariot Korea, 21 years of age, but now very experienced. 8th and 5th in successive World Championship 10,000 metres. Second in the African 10,000. And he has a best of 61 minutes exactly for the half marathon. There's Goumri of Morocco, now isolated, back in 11th or 12th place. He's just gone through the 15 kilometre mark. Well, the leaders have gone through in 43 minutes 26. So this group in the teens and the placings, about a minute down now on the lead. So that shows how the leading group have got away from the rest. 2:02 there, Oscar Fernandez of Spain. And those are the leaders. 5 men at 43:26, and then Tola, Tadisi, Koech and Songoka also up there just a second behind. So 9 men. And in the team, because this is a team competition as well, first 3 to score. It's all African there. Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Morocco and Eritrea, the leading nations, with France the top European nation at the 3/4 stage of this race. Team competition determined on the aggregate times of the top 3 competitors. So Fabian Joseph, 3:02, and John Yuda of Tanzania. Martin Lel now of Kenya taking up the running. He's had a terrific race record at half marathon this year. Won in Lisbon back in the spring in 60 minutes 10 seconds on that slightly downhill course, and also won in the United States at Virginia Beach. This is Yuda. And those are the times. They've gone 14:37 for the opening kilometre, then speeded up a bit to 14:17, but it's just eased off a bit now. Of course, a little bit tougher. There was some speculation as to whether we could get possibility of world best times, particularly in the women's race to come. The conditions may be a little bit too tough for that, just a little bit too warm and a little bit twisty. But really now it seems to be developing into a Kenyan-Tanzanian battle, 20 kilometres in 57.56, so just a kilometre to go, and we're down to 4 men. Lel and Korea of Kenya, Joseph and Sewell of Tanzania. John Yuda just simply seems to be just a little bit back of them now, 3:05, so it's 3:02 Joseph, 3:04 Martin Sewell, the other Tanzanian, best of 61.33 this year, so he's well on course to run a faster time. And the two Kenyans, Lel, the road racing specialist, never runs on the track, against John Chariot Korea, who's got one of the best records on the track of any distance runner in recent seasons. Won 3 major races in Kenya at 10,000 metres on the track earlier this year. They're really now coming up towards the finish. Less than a kilometre to go as they stretch along the waterfront here at Vilamoura. This race, which hasn't been won by a European since 1996 when Stefano Baldini of Italy was the victor, sure to go to Africa now. Will it be the Kenyan or will it be the Tanzanian? And which one of those nations? What a battle it is coming into the finish. Joseph now tackled by Yell with Korea just behind them, and Sewell holding on. Running hard along the waterfront now. Not far outside 60 minutes. Some 600 metres or so to go. They've got one more turn to come in when they'll see the finish line. It's Lel on the inside now of the 17-year-old Joseph. Coming past the yachts in the harbour. These East African athletes solely concentrating now on the finish, and the finish of the IF World Half Marathon Championships 2003. Martin Lel wearing 2:52 and Fabian Joseph wearing 3:02. They're the leaders. As they come into the finish, it looks like John Chariot Korea has had to yield from the back, but Martin Sewell is holding on to the leading two. Lel now coming ahead of the youngster, Martin Lel. The Kenyan, who's coached by Gabriela Rossa, who's also the coach of the great Paul Turgat. Lel it is in the red vest of Kenya, who comes in to lead this race. He can see the finish now. Martin Lel tracked by Fabian Joseph. The finish now of the IF World Half Marathon Championships, and Martin Lel of Kenya sprinting clear now of Fabian Joseph. It's going to be the 8th Kenyan victory in the IF World Half Marathon Championships, and Martin Lel taking his first major title. He wins it. Fabian Joseph comes along in second place. Martin Wawe Sul of Tanzania comes in second. Great triumph there for Tanzania, and with the first two there. John Chariot Korea of Kenya coming in fourth place. We'll be looking down the rest to see who's going to take the team award. Well, it's going to be Tanzania. He's limping at the finish, but John Yuda makes it 3 Tanzanians in the top 5, finishing just ahead of Yusuf Songoka of Kenya. 3 Kenyans also in. So Kenya and Tanzania completely dominated this race. The DC of Eritrea followed across the line by Koech of Kenya. Then it's the first Ethiopian, Tesfaye Tola. And these 9 have got well clear of the rest of the field. No one else in sight down that finishing straight. Well, looking back on this race, big challenge there. Yuda was leading, but it was certainly a wholly African group for the first 10 or 12 places until you go back to Paulo Gomes of Portugal and Kazuyuki Maeda of Japan. The first finishers from those continents in 13th and 14th place respectively. The conditions were pretty hot throughout. The runners had to make sure they took plenty of water on board. Passing the water bottle there between the 2 Kenyans, 2:52 Lel and 2:51 Korea. And it really was a great battle there between Kenya and Tanzania. Ethiopia some way back, taking third place in the overall team competition. But it was this point that Martin Lel hit the front. He's always been with that leading group, but whereas Fabian Joseph had been a bit more prominent in pushing on, it was Lel in the finishing stages who set up a decisive lead and came through to win by 3 seconds. Conditions took their toll of the finishers. 17 of the 103 starters did not finish the race. Even one of the Kenyan team, in fact, was a non-starter, Paul Kirui. But this was the climax of the race, with Martin Lel of Kenya coming through to win from Fabian Joseph of Tanzania. The winning time, a good one, if not a record one, 1 hour, 0 minutes, 49 seconds. 60.49 for the winner there. Lel, Joseph, Sewell, as we see that all-African first 10. Personal best by 5 of the top 10 finishers. Portuguese athlete Gomez coming in 13th place in his home country. So I don't know whether the people on the yachts have been following the race closely, but certainly they've been able to see the runners going past them. And there's the team. For the first time, Tanzania take the team title. 3 hours, 3 minutes, 1 second, their cumulative total. Kenya in second and Ethiopia third. Well, now we come to the women's race and the big favourite, the phenomenal Paula Radcliffe of Great Britain, bidding for a third World Championship at the distance of the half marathon. Race conditions a little bit tougher than for the men in that the temperature has risen at the start from 19 degrees Celsius for the men to 22 degrees Celsius for the women. The world best time, 1 hour, 6 minutes, 44 seconds by Elana Meyer of South Africa. And that's a time well within the compass of Paula Radcliffe, who in fact ran faster than that, 65 minutes, 40 seconds to win the Great North Run in Newcastle just a couple of weeks ago. That, however, cannot count as a world best, world record, because the course from South Shields, or rather from Newcastle to South Shields, just slightly downhill and also a point-to-point course. And the conditions now introduced by the IF for world records on the roads is that the course has to be flat between the start and finish, and also the start and finish must be within 50% of each other, rather than just a out-and-back course which could take the advantage of a following wind. So Paula Radcliffe already up there wearing number 43. Her main challenge likely to come from the world indoor and outdoor champion this year on the track, Bahani Adiri of Ethiopia. And indeed Adiri is already prominent up there in the green, wearing number 30. And a strong Russian challenge, Gala Zelieva, Lyudmila Bektashiva, Lydia Gregoyeva, Alina Ivanova and Galina Bogomolova. Now the runners to look out for, number 3, Benita Johnson of Australia, and always prominent, particularly early on in these races, Constantina Tumescu of Romania. Romania with a great record in the half marathon championships, and they've won 6 times in the previous 11 runnings of the event. Kenya having won 4 times, and that's 4 in the last 5 years, in fact. But already, very early in the race, just 5 and a bit minutes into the race, just see how spread out this field are. And a hot pace being set out front. Well, Paula Radcliffe has made it her way of running to go out hard right from the start and simply run away from the rest of the field. In her early days, there was some question that she lost the chance of winning major titles because she was out-sprinted, having done a lot of the work early on. And she's doing just that here. The question for the rest of the world's runners is, can they hang on to the extraordinary pace that she has often set in her major races? Beautiful setting here at Vilamoura. And Radcliffe already stretching out. Unlike in the men's race when there was a big group prominent for most of the race. Here it's Radcliffe from Adiri, and then Benita Johnson of Australia. Russians also prominent, as is Tumescu of Romania. And Radcliffe pushing on hard with that distinctive head-bopping style. Much smoother, Adiri holding in behind her. Adiri, the defending champion, also third in 2001 when Radcliffe last ran and won. Radcliffe the winner also in 2000. This is Benita Johnson, who set Oceania records on the track at all distances up from 3,000 metres to 10,000 metres, here running the half marathon for the first time in a major race. And number 32, also prominent, that's Teba Kesu of Ethiopia. That few there, number 71, Susan Chepkamai of Kenya. Well, before Paula Radcliffe won the Great North Run in Britain, Susan Chepkamai had run the fastest ever half marathon. Again, on a course not eligible for records at Lisbon 2 years ago when she ran a time of 65:44. Running a pretty fast pace to start with, but the conditions now, as it's getting warmer, not really conducive to record pace, one wouldn't have thought. That's 32, Kesu, newcomer in the Ethiopian team. Ethiopia third in the team race in the last 2 years. Bound to put in a challenge against the probably rather weaker Kenyan team this year. Possibly the challenge more likely to come from Romania and Russia and Japan. Benita Johnson there running an isolated race, 12 minutes into it. Getting to grips with running a longer distance on the roads. He's got a lot of experience at 10,000 metres. It's a little over twice that distance. Never before been an Australian medalist in this race in the championships in the World Half Marathon history. But out front, it's Paula Radcliffe still pushing it on. Tracked by Adiri and Chepkamai. Well, those are the three favourites undoubtedly for this race. Adiri, of course, will know that she's really up against it, against Radcliffe, because she finished well behind Paula Radcliffe in the Great North Run just 2 weeks before this race. But she'll know that she's got a lot of speed, and if she can just hold on to Paula, then she may have a chance. If she can hold on to Paula. No one's been able to hold on to Paula Radcliffe in recent times, who's come back from injury and illness to set world road race at 5 kilometres and 10 kilometres. Now Chepkamai has moved ahead of Adiri, tracking Radcliffe all the time, who's oblivious to the opposition, just is setting out at her own good pace. Ever since she first ran the London Marathon last year, she's been invincible. Set a women's only world record in that event, and then went on to smash the world record in 2 great marathon runs, first in Chicago, almost exactly a year ago, and then in London in April this year, when she took about 2 minutes off the world record for the marathon. Paula Radcliffe, who first came to the fore in 1992, which was coincidentally the first year this event was ever held. And on that occasion she won the world cross-country title for juniors. Chepkamai, a great record in this race. Indeed, the runner-up for the last 3 years. Now Radcliffe getting clear of the 2 Africans. Very early on, she's committed herself to a front-running pace, and for many people, one might say, has she gone too soon? But with Paula Radcliffe, this is the way she runs, and this is the form that's taken her to unparalleled success in distance running over the last couple of years. Coming up to the 5,000 metre point in this race. Already the Africans have had to yield earlier, I'm sure, than they would have feared, and Radcliffe has already got something like 15 metres on the pair of them. And no one else in sight on those pictures, just coming into sight now, in fact. So we've got Paula Radcliffe leading. We then have Susan Chepkemei of Kenya and Bahani Adiri of Ethiopia. And then a big gap back to the rest. This is the 5,000 metre point. And it's 15:41, so a fast pace by Radcliffe. It's pretty much on schedule for the world best time. Although whether she can keep it up on her own in these tough conditions must be a little questionable. There's Benita Johnson wearing number 3. Grigorieva of Russia behind her. So those positions at 5 kilometres. Radcliffe had a 5-second advantage over Chepkemei and Adiri. 14 seconds then back to Johnson, with Grigorieva a further second behind her. Paula Radcliffe, now 29 years of age, just about the peak age for a distance runner. Twice the winner of this championship, twice the world cross-country champion. Up against Susan Chepkemei here, wearing number 71, 3-time silver medalist in this event. And Bahani Adiri, world champion on indoor tracks, outdoor tracks, team gold at cross-country as well, and the defending champion on the road. So a winner on all surfaces. And Adiri has had a great year, unquestionably. Once again, having to yield now that Paula Radcliffe is back in action. What a shame it was that Paula Radcliffe missed the track season completely through illness and, above all, an injury. She was run over by a cyclist, or run into by a cyclist while training in the USA. And some complications developed from that, a result of which she sadly wasn't able to go and compete in the World Championships in the Stade de France in Paris, because many, certainly I included, felt that she would have won at least one gold medal there. And indeed, on the track this year, might well have challenged the world record for 10,000 and 5,000 metres. Well, the gap opening up a little bit now. It's 16 seconds to the chasing two of Chepkemei and Adiri. Adiri content just to slipstream the slighter figure of the Kenyan. And this is Benita Johnson wearing number 3. 99 is Temescu. 32 Keso of Ethiopia. Well, the two Africans can still see Paula Radcliffe, but she's going further and further away from them. The question is, can she hold on to her form? And it's now quite a hot day. And just behind, you can see Grigorieva, having broken clear of those other 3, now beginning to set her sights on the two Africans. That's Grigorieva wearing 104, the Russian 29-year-old, 9th in the Olympic Games 3 years ago, and also on the Russian team in the World Championships this year, but it's disappointing to be 16th in the track 10,000. Grigorieva with a personal best for the half marathon at 70:48, so she'll hope to substantially improve that. A lot of people now on the roads here, a lot more than there were for the men's race. A lot of British holidaymakers, I think, down in the Algarve have perhaps foregone their golf this morning and are out here to cheer on Paula Radcliffe. As well they should, because she is an athlete that few will see in such form again, I'm sure. She's in unparalleled form, absolutely supreme, well clear of the rest of the world, and showing that in this race as we now look on the athletes in 5th, 6th and 7th places. But it's hard work. Paula Radcliffe, the greatest athlete, greatest woman athlete at least, of our time, but the pain showing there to get this sort of margin, increasing all the time over world champions, is hard work indeed. They can get quite used to the course if they've got time to admire the scenery as they go by. 6 laps. Certainly very good for spectators who can pick up the runners as they go round. Already a vast difference between first and last in the men's race. The last competitor came in 1 hour 25 minutes behind the winner. And I'm sure the women's race will see a similar pattern. And yet, of course, these athletes representing their nations in the World Championships, so they will be the best of their nations, and yet they're having to run a long, long way behind the class of the field, who is Radcliffe. Went through the first 5 kilometres in 15 minutes, 41 seconds. Certainly on schedule for a 66, 67 second time for the half marathon distance. Radcliffe have now run the marathon in 2 hours, 15 minutes, and indeed very, very few runners in the world can run even half a marathon in the time that Paula Radcliffe can run 2 successive half marathons. Such is the margin of her superiority. Chepkamay and Adiri sticking to it. Adiri ran a personal best time in the Great North Run, 67 minutes 32 seconds. And that's nearly 2 minutes slower than Chepkamay, but Adiri much less experience at running half marathons and certainly could well run on a favourable course. Her time a fair bit quicker than that, one thinks. She won last year in 69.06. But here's Paula Radcliffe, who holds the championship record at 66 minutes 47 seconds, the time she did 2 years ago. Chepkamay on that occasion finished second, 67 minutes 36 seconds. So that's 49 seconds behind, and that occasion was the biggest ever winning margin. Paula Radcliffe winning by 49 seconds in Bristol. Well, she's reached the 10,000 metre point in 31.25, so maintaining her pace pretty well. Running past the harbour again. That's Paula Radcliffe out on her own, pretty much against the stopwatch. Let's see what times the next two. Well, they're outside 32 minutes, Chepkamay and Adiri. So really, that would be some 35 seconds or so behind Radcliffe, and that's a very big margin. Yes, there it is, 38 seconds behind Radcliffe. Well, that 49-second winning margin could well be beaten. Looks like Grigor'eva still running an isolated fourth, the top Russian. But Russians packing well, and they could do well in the team competition here because Zilieva, Biktasheva, Ivanova, all up in the leading half dozen or so, or rather the leading dozen or so at this stage of the race. Paula Radcliffe, who started running, still runs for Bedford and County Athletic Club in England. Lives in Loughborough with her husband, Gary Locke, former international at 1,500 metres, now her manager. He'll be here handing out water to her on the course. You can see the pain showing there on Chepkamay's face. Chepkamay wearing 71. Adiri just content to tuck in behind the Kenyan, not attempting to go with Radcliffe. The only hope for them is if Radcliffe cracks somehow in the final half of this race. That can happen in long-distance races. But for Radcliffe, her winning run goes back over 2 years now. That was the margin at the 10-kilometre point. And Radcliffe just seems to be stretching away all the time, but having to take on water, feeling it hard. Paula Radcliffe surely an inspiration to athletes all over the world. She was a good youngster who grew into a brilliant junior, winning the World Cross title. Made her way quickly into senior ranks with some success, fifth in the World Championships back in 1993. But then suffered from injuries for a couple of years and showed great tenacity to overcome them. and has done so well that she's now the leading figure. That was the position at 10 kilometres. Radcliffe, then Chepkamea and Nadiri. Grigorieva an isolated fourth, and over a minute behind Radcliffe. You see the rest of the field. We now go into those 11th to 20th. And by the time 20th comes, over 2 minutes down on Radcliffe. And certainly the Russian team looks to be going pretty well at this stage. Japan and Romania also packing pretty well. And Ethiopia challenging. The British team had been looking possibly to get medals. They've got Kathy Butler and Hayley Yelling in their team with Bev Jenkins and Beverly Robinson. And of course, they'll be looking for an outstanding time from Paula to perhaps counteract the positions of the other runners a little bit further down. And there you can see Britain and Northern Ireland in fourth place now. Russia, Ethiopia, Romania, Britain and Japan, the leading team places at the halfway stage. Well, we're coming up now to 15 kilometres into this race, and Paula Radcliffe slowed a little bit after the first opening 5 kilometre stretches, but now coming up to 15 kilometres, well clear of the rest of the field. Already lapping some runners, and she reaches 15k in 47.46. Well, that was quite a lot slower. 16.21, that 5 kilometre split, after 15.41 and 15.44. Well, Radcliffe is slowing. Whether that's just deliberately easing off a little bit, perhaps it is when she sees that the world record, which must have been a target for her, is perhaps out of reach on this rather warm day, on this rather twisting course, because she's still surely running strongly, and in fact is still going away from the rest of the field, even if she has slowed a little bit from the staggering pace really that she'd set in the early stages of this race. She was in fantastic form in the Great North Run just a couple of weeks ago when she smashed the world best for 10 miles. She went through that in 50 minutes and 1 second, en route to her half marathon victory in 65 minutes 40 seconds. So it was a little slower than that today, but still a long way clear of the rest of the field. And Adiri and Chepkamea have just been caught. 104 is Grigorieva of Russia. So there's now 3 of them in that next group. Grigorieva checking as they go through the 15 kilometre stage in just a second under 49 seconds. So that's now a minute and 13 seconds back on Radcliffe. Well, she's pretty much doubled her lead from 10 kilometres to 15 kilometres. Tomescu and Johnson follow in 5th and 6th places. Then another Russians, Biktasheva and Zilieva. And another Russian in 10th, Ivanova, just behind the top Japanese runner, Miki Takanaka. Zilieva, a former race walker, who's now 34 years of age, and set the Russian record in the track 10,000 metre championships. Paula Radcliffe careful to take on water all through. Amazing to think that women, of course, were not allowed to run distances as long as this, as little as less than 30 years ago. Since then, a lot has been learnt, of course, about the importance of taking on liquid all through long-distance races. There's a check on Radcliffe's times, showing after 15.40 and 15.45 that she did slow indeed considerably to 16.21 in the third 5 kilometre stretch. All these runners taking on plenty of water to avoid dehydration. Warm day here down on the Algarve in the south of Portugal. Still holiday season in early October. And Russia now getting well clear in the team competition from Romania and Japan. The British team slipping back a little bit. But slightly surprisingly, we don't have the teams from East Africa so prominent. Ethiopia still up there in the leading competitors, and they were third the last couple of occasions. But Kenya, winner 4 times in the last 5 championships, do not seem to be in contention this time. Just Chepkamea up in the leading group, and then a long way back before the next of a young and relatively inexperienced Kenyan team. Well, having said that, Selina Kosgei, the Commonwealth 10,000 metre champion, is in the field, but she doesn't seem to be having a very good day today and is not in the top 25 or so. Radcliffe overtaking the back markers on this 2.5 mile course. Adiri and Grigorieva with Chepkamai. Those are the runners contending for the other medal position. Surely Radcliffe has now gone well ahead of them, and they're looking for the silver and bronze spots. If Chepkamai could stay in touch and get the silver medal, it will be her 4th in succession. As we come up to the 1 hour mark in this race, Paula Radcliffe out on her own, 1.5 minutes clear of the rest of the field. There's a staggering margin of command, bearing in mind that the previous record margin of victory was 49 seconds. Radcliffe leading by over 1.5 minutes, and Grigorieva running on her own there. The Russian has run a couple of marathons a few years ago, but now seems to be concentrating on 10,000 meters and half marathon. Making a bid to break clear of the Ethiopian Adiri and Kenyan Chepkamai. Oh, in fact, Adiri it is who's gone clear of her. So it's Adiri now isolated 2nd, Grigorieva an isolated 3rd, and Chepkamai falling off those two. But Adiri, although she's on her own now, will surely know that Paula Radcliffe is far, far too far ahead of her. You won't even be able to see her as Radcliffe now goes through 20 kilometres after a 16:21 5-kilometre split. That's exactly the same as she did between 10 kilometres and 15 kilometres. So Radcliffe running relentlessly here now, coming in to the finish of the World Half Marathon. Paula Radcliffe, World Half Marathon champion for the 3rd time in 5 years, retaining an unbeaten run in distance running. Surely the phenomenon of the sporting age currently, Paula Radcliffe, the very clear winner. She's won by about 1.5 minutes now. Bahani Adiri coming through to take the silver medal for Ethiopia. She won it last year. This year, she's seen the supreme champion, Paula Radcliffe, ahead of her. And coming in for the bronze medal, Benita Johnson of Australia has picked her way back past Grigorieva, who we can see in the red vest, coming into 4th place, come through late in the race to take the bronze medal in the first ever of that colour for Australia in the Women's World Half Marathon Championships. A magnificent victory for Paula Radcliffe in 67 minutes, 35 seconds, and a record victory margin of 1 minute, 27 seconds ahead of Adiri, with Johnson in 3rd. And the team victory, clear winners, Russia, Japan was 2nd, Romania 3rd.